Welcome back to your mats. For practice today, we're going to use a bolster. If you don't have a bolster like this, you can just use a pillow or a cushion. And we're also going to be using 2 yoga blocks. So if you don't have a yoga block like this, something similar in shape and size that will be able to provide you some support. You could use a couple of books and stack those together. We won't be using too much weight on the books, so they would still be appropriate in terms of providing support for the body. All right, and then we're going to get started. We're going to start with using this bolster, your pillow, and you're going to take the bolster so that it goes down the long way, so long in the same direction as the mat. And then bringing that bolster right up to the hips, and then hands are going to come down, and then we're very gently release the body down on top of the bolster. So you want the full length of the spine, the full length of the spine supported here, and then the head resting, not hanging off of the bolster. So if your body is going over, just make sure that the hips are still resting. And then if you need to take additional pillow or a cushion underneath the head. And then anything comfortable for the legs. So you can keep the knees bent, maybe walk the feet to the outside edges of the mat, let the knees fold in and rest on one another. You could even take Baddha Konasana, a butterfly shape with the legs, so soles of the feet together, and then the knees come to rest to the outside edges of the mat. And you can even keep the feet and legs long. That feels good in the body. And let's keep the arms down by the side, and we'll rest the back of the hands on the earth, palms faced up. And if it feels okay, let's go ahead and close the eyes. Just start to take that focus inward. And let's begin our practice with a few cleansing breaths. So letting go of any air that's currently in the lungs, and then a big deep breath in, fill up the lungs to the top. Part the lips, heavy sigh out, let it go. Let's do 2 more. Big deep breath in, biggest breath you've taken today. Part the lips, heavy sigh out, let it go. 1 more, and let's hold this when we get to the top. Big deep breath in. Hold it. Take in 1 more little sip. Part the lips, heavy sigh out, let it go. So just taking these first few minutes of class here to begin to center, allow the busyness of the mind to kind of refocus, bringing the awareness, the attention to this moment here on the mat. And maybe even starting with just an energetic check-in. How are you today? What's it like to be you in this moment? And then allowing this observation to be made without judgment. Allowing yourself to be exactly as you've shown up in this moment on your mat. And then let's bring the attention to the physical sensations of the body. So starting with a scan here from the soles of the feet, traveling all the way up the body to the crown of the head, looking for feedback. So checking in with each individual body part and noticing how those parts of the body feel. Noticing tension, noticing any aches, noticing where in the body you might feel soft, open, And again, make your observations here without judgment. So allow the body to be exactly as it is, as you've shown up here. And we do this so that we can honor the body in our practice. So we know where we can push ourselves, where we can explore our edges, or where we need to back off, where we need to be soft or gentle. And I'll give you a few more moments here to finish this scan. And once you've finished that scan of the body, let's bring the awareness to the breath. And without changing anything, just observing your natural inhales and exhales. Noticing where in the body the breath lands on the inhale. And then noticing the spaces created in the body as it leaves on the exhale. And then on your next inhale breath, see if you can fully release the muscles in the belly and let that breath travel all the way down to the bottom of the torso. And then on the exhale, allowing the belly to soften, to contract, and then that breath come all the way back, come back out through the nose. And see if you can follow this inhale, exhale pattern. Inhale, soften the belly, send the breath to the bottom. Exhale, contract the belly, and let the breath come all the way back out through the nose. And you're not taking bigger breaths. These are your same natural inhales and exhales. We're just sending it deeper into the body, softening the belly, relaxing these muscles. Now we use the breath in our practice to help the mind have a point of focus. Keeps us present and just creates a mind-body connection with the breath. And just a couple more moments here, focusing on the breath. And now let's bring one hand to the heart, or maybe to the center of the chest, and then one hand to the belly. And so we'll be doing a heart opening practice today, connecting with the energy center of the heart, of this chest area, which is associated with the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is what we relate with love and the expression of compassion and kindness and how we give and interact with the world. And so we'll be focusing our practice here today, but maybe here with this little embrace of the hand to the heart and the other to the belly, maybe start to check in with how your compassion is. And so oftentimes this time of year is about service and sacrifice and generosity. And that's very much associated with this energy center, the heart chakra. But sometimes we deplete ourselves in this area. We overshare, overgive, and we become depleted. And so just checking in with yourself here, with your heart. What are you in need of today? And can we honor that in our practice as we move? Or maybe you need to give more. Maybe you can be inspired to find more generosity or find space for your own sacrifice. So, whichever that is, maybe setting an intention for your practice today to honor that energy, to either invite in more compassion for yourselves or more compassion for others. All right, let's take the arms down by the side. And you can keep your eyes closed for this initial bit of movement. If it feels better to open the eyes, you can start to flutter the eyes open. And then on the next inhale, we're going to make this kind of sweeping moment, arcing the hands up and around above the head. Maybe even reaching through those fingertips. And then exhale, taking the hands back down the sides. And then inhale to come back up. And exhale to bring them back down. And then just start to bring some awareness around that space in the chest. Maybe noticing in the heart area, in that center point of the chest where maybe the hand was resting, extending out into the armpits, through the biceps, and the forearms, the hands and the fingertips, just noticing how this movement feels. And just warming up the shoulders a little bit, warming up the chest. And then the next time the hands come down to the side, we'll let them pause, maybe taking the palms and letting them rest down onto the earth. And just notice any shifts or changes that have happened so far. All right, we're going to roll over onto the right hand side. We're just going to pause here for a moment. Maybe letting the head rest on the inside of the bicep. We've spent some time on the back, so just noticing how the back space of the body feels here. And then we're going to move our prop out of the way and we're going to come back onto our backs. And then same thing with the legs. So options for the legs, you can keep the knees bent, feet can come to the outside edges of the mat and knees rest on each other. You can come back with the legs extended, arms down by the side. And we're just going to check in with that space of the shoulders, the chest, and then the points of contact that the back is making with the earth. So that might be the back of the hips, the low back, your middle part of the back, the shoulders. Just notice where you feel the earth and the points of contact of the earth that you're making. And then on the next inhale, let's bend both knees. We'll bring both knees into the chest. We're going to wrap the hands either around the shins or maybe behind the thighs or on top of the thighs. You can even have them rested on the knees. but we want to hug the legs in toward the belly as close as you can. And then we're going to lift the head and the shoulders off of the mat. We're going to round the head in toward the knees. Again, getting as close as you can here. So imagine just making like a really tight ball. Maybe wrapping the arms a little bit closer, hugging yourself in even a little bit more. And then on the exhale, we'll let that go. Let's keep the knees bent, plant the feet about a foot or two in front of the hips. We'll take the arms out to the side like a T. And on the exhale, we'll let the legs fall over to the left. Just taking a gentle twist here. Getting a little bit more movement into the spine. Starting to wake up the hips a little bit more. And now, if you feel good here, you can stay here. It's still early in our practice. Or maybe take and cross that left ankle over the right thigh to create additional traction in the top of that right leg, maybe into the hip and up the spine. And if that doesn't feel good, you can always uncross the ankle and hold this shape here. Gaze can be up at the sky. Maybe you take the gaze out over those fingertips. Noticing the sensations in the body. Where do you feel effort in this pose? And where do you feel ease? Can you use an exhale breath to soften, to melt into the shape a little bit more? And on the next inhale, bring the knees back up to center. Exhale, let the legs fall over to the right. Same option with the gaze, can be up at the sky, or maybe you take it out over those left fingertips. And then if you feel good here, you can stay here. If you're maybe looking for that additional traction and assist, you can cross that right ankle over the left thigh. And again, if that doesn't feel good on this side, you can cross that ankle and just let the legs lay as they are. On the next inhale, bring the knees back up through center. Maybe find a little tick-tock from side to side, or maybe even bring the knees back into the body again for Apanasana one more time. Rounding the back, lifting up the shoulders and the head toward the knees. And we're going to roll over onto the right hand side again, and then we're going to press ourselves up to a seat. Actually, we're going to come to tabletop. So coming to hands and knees. And we're just going to take a couple rounds of cat and cow here, just warming up the spine and the hips and the shoulders a little bit more. Shoulders are stacked above wrists here. Hands are about shoulder distance apart. Fingertips spread wide, and we're pressing into all 10 fingers. And the knees are stacked below hips, and the toes can be tucked or untucked. And we'll start with our cow pose. Inhale, we'll tilt the sit bones behind you, and then pull the heart forward for our cow pose. And so we have this nice natural curve in the low part of the back, the lumbar spine. And so see if you can make the effort of this flexion, of the curving of the spine in the upper part of the back. And try to avoid sinking into the shoulders. We're staying lifted out of the shoulders and pulling that heart forward. This is our cow pose. And then on the exhale, round the spine, push the earth away, tilt the sit bones down, and draw that chin in toward the chest. Cat pose. Now see here if you can spread the shoulder blades really far apart, reaching the backspace of the heart to the sky. And then taking breath by breath movement between these two shapes. Inhales to cow, exhales to cat. And then see if you can bring the awareness back to that space around the chest, the center point of the chest, into the shoulders, and that upper part of the back. What's happening in there? I'm being curious about how it feels to move between these two shapes and that part of the body. So when does the chest become soft? When does the back become soft? Just noticing how this feels. A couple more times. And then after your next cat pose, we're going to sink the hips back, letting the hips rest over the heels. Belly comes on top of the thighs. Maybe even walking the knees out to the outside edge of the mat and letting the belly hang between the legs. Forehead reaches down toward the earth. Maybe supporting the forehead with the palms or the fists. You can even come up onto the elbows and let the chin rest onto the insides of the hands. And then just as a reminder, this is your child's pose, your pose that's available at any time in your practice. If you need a moment to pause, to reset, to catch the breath, and come here. And if this pose doesn't feel good to you, any other pose in your practice that does, you can take that instead. So coming back into a shavasana, maybe on the side or even a seat, anything else that feels good where you can go to pause. On the next inhale, we're going to come back up and we're going to set up our blocks for our next pose. So we're going to take the blocks on the lowest setting. We're going to keep them at the top of the mat. And we're going to set ourselves up. So if we're in our tabletop, shoulders stack over wrists, knees below hips, and we want the blocks out maybe about 6 inches or so in front of us. And we can kind of play with the movement or play with the depth of this pose. We're coming into puppy pose or melting heart. And we're going to take the palms, walk the hands out on top of the blocks. And then on the exhale, sinking the heart down. Keep pressing into the blocks. Let the heart come down and reach toward the earth. And then option, you can even rest the forehead on the earth if it touches. And again, it doesn't have to, it can stay floating. So option for the forehead to rest on the earth, or maybe if the chin reaches, you can reach and rest the chin on the earth. Take the gaze between the hands. And avoid any dumping in the shoulders. So I know we're sinking down here, but to help protect that shoulder joint, we're going to keep the shoulders activated. So imagine wrapping the triceps, the back sides of the arm down. We're pressing into the palms onto the mat, onto the blocks. And then keep reaching that heart down. And so just like we did in our cow pose, we are focusing on that space in the upper part of the back. Noticing where you feel this. Where's their effort? Where's their ease? Where can you soften? Right, on the next inhale, we'll start to rise back up. So very gently lifting up and then start to walk those hands back in toward the body. It might feel nice to take another child's pose, folding the belly in on top of the legs, arms down by the side. Might feel nice with the little work that we did there on the shoulders. And if the child's pose doesn't feel good, you could even come into a seat and just pause, letting the hands rest in the lap. And come back and close the eyes. And just take that attention again back into the body, noticing anything that's shifted or changed in your body yet. Again, bringing that attention to the space around the chest, the center point of the heart, the shoulders, and that part of the back. And then come back to that breath. All right, now wherever you're at, we're going to come back up, and we're going to come to a seat. And we're going to take Sukhasana, and we'll start with the left leg in front of the right. And then we're just going to take an easy forward fold from here. So let's sit up, grow a little taller, and then inhale, reach the hands to the sky. And then exhale, hinging forward at the hips. Try and keep the spine long, so it's active still. And then let the hands come down and rest on the earth. So we're not rounding the spine yet. I'll give you an option in a moment. So the spine is still nice and long. And with the hands resting here, pressing into the earth, maybe see if you can pull that heart forward a little more. So again, finding that flexion maybe in the upper part of the back. And then walking the hands a little bit further forward. And then allowing the spine to round, folding all the way in. Chin comes into the chest. Maybe letting the head be fully heavy here. And using the arms to support the upper part of the body. Noticing where you feel this. Where is there effort in this pose? Where is there ease? Can you use an exhale breath to soften? And on the next inhale, we'll start to rise back up, walking the hands back in, bringing the torso upright. And then we'll switch the crossing of the legs. So just take that opposite leg out in front. And then we're going to do that same forward fold again, just with this, the change of the legs. So inhale, sweep the hands to the sky. Exhale, hinging forward, keep that spine long. Hands come down and rest on the earth. Maybe noticing how this side feels a little bit different than the other, where you feel it here. Again, maybe using the contact of the hands with the earth to pull the heart a little bit further forward. And then on the exhale, rounding the spine, taking the chin into the chest, and just melting a little bit further forward into this fold. Our sides are different, so noticing how this feels with the crossing of the legs. Switched in the other variation, maybe feeling it more on one hip or the other. Maybe the other side was easier, or maybe everything feels the same. And that's all okay. On the next inhale, we'll start to walk the hands back in, coming back up, bringing the torso back up through center. All right, now let's take our bolster or your pillow. I'm going to take it probably about halfway down your mat. And then we're going to come back down onto the belly, and we're going to use the support of this bolster right on the hip points. So lowering down here, and then we're going to come onto our forearms. So we're in this supported Sphinx pose, and shoulders are stacked over elbows, forearms are parallel to one another, and you're pressing into the forearms. Excuse me. Pressing into the forearms, pressing into the palms, and then avoid sinking into the shoulders. We want to stay lifted out of the shoulders here. And then with that press of the palms and lift out of the shoulders, again, find that contact with the earth. Pull the heart forward. And then let's take the feet wide so that they're pointing to the top or to the back corners of the mat. And maybe shake out the hips a little bit, relaxing the glutes. And then come back to your breath. Maybe finding that inhale coming in through the nose. Soften the muscles of the belly. Sending the breath to the bottom. And the exhales. Following that breath all the way back out. And we'll stay here for a few more cycles of breath. On the next exhale, we're going to plant the hands in front of the face, stacking the palms, and you can let the elbows come to the outside edges of the mat, and then the forehead comes down and rests on the hands. If the bolster under the hips and the belly are providing any type of discomfort, you can go ahead and move that out of the way. If this feels good here, which it does for me, it gives a nice rounding in the lumbar spine. Just a couple cycles of breath here. It might also feel nice to bend the knees and find a tick-tock of the knees from side to side. Taking movement or stillness here. All right, so we're going to come back up onto the forearms, coming into our Sphinx shape. And we're going to do a little bit of a flow here. So from the Sphinx shape, we're going to slide the palms down to where the elbows were resting. And then we're going to press ourselves up and then shifting back to a child's pose. Now, if the bolster here is creating kind of an obstruction or it's just uncomfortable, or you'd like to experiment this movement without the bolster, you can do that. So we're in this extended child's pose. And then on the inhale, we'll come back up. And then exhale, lower back down, bring the palms, lift up, Sphinx pose. Slide the hands underneath the shoulders, press yourself up, and then shifting back, child's pose. Now see if you can create this rounding in the spine as we come back down, lowering onto the belly, Sphinx pose. And then as you slide the hands, see if you can keep this curve in the back, and then start to press yourself up, rounding the low part of the spine, bringing that curve all the way to the upper part of the back as you shift the hips back. So think almost like a wave. We're creating this rippling effect in the spine, this undulating effect in the spine, bringing the hips back down, lowering onto the belly, coming onto the forearms, lifting the chest forward. Slide the palms down, and then again, keeping that curve, and then rounding the low part of the back, and then all the way up to the middle, to the upper part of the back. So we're rounding each individual vertebrae here, keeping the upper part of the back round, sending that to the middle part of the back, the low back, and then coming down, lowering onto the belly, Sphinx pose. Let's do that one more time. Slide the hands underneath the shoulders, and then start to round the upper part, the low part of the back, the middle part of the back, the upper part of the back. And then coming up, upper part of the back is round, traveling all the way down, middle section, lower section, and then down, Sphinx pose. And we'll come back down all the way into our gator pose. So stacking the palms in front of the face again. Elbows come out to the outside edges of the mat. Forehead rests on the backs of the hands. And then anything that's calling to you here, maybe bending the knees and tick-tocking the knees from side to side. Or coming to stillness. And again, you can move that bolster out from underneath you. Okay, so we're going to do that same little movement, but we're going to use it without that bolster. So if you already took the bolster out from underneath you, that's fine. You're just going to do it again. And we'll come back down onto the belly. Let's come into our Sphinx shape. Shoulders stacked below elbows, pressing into palms and forearms, pulling the heart forward. Maybe noticing how it feels to be in this shape without the support of the bolster. And then sliding those palms underneath the shoulders, and then start to push yourself up. So still rounding the base of the spine, coming all the way up to the middle, to the upper part of the back, and into your child's pose. And then coming back, rounding the upper part of the back, the middle, the low back, and lowering all the way down onto the belly. And Sphinx pose, coming onto the forearms. And we'll do that 2 more times. Let's slide the hands underneath the shoulders. We'll start to lift the low part of the back, rounding the spine, traveling all the way up. Child's pose. Rounding the upper part of the back, the middle, shifting all the way forward, lowering onto the belly. Sphinx pose. One more time. Slide those palms underneath the shoulders. Start to lift the hips, round the low back, middle part of the back, upper part of the back. Child's pose. And we'll rest here in your child's pose. Might feel nice to take the arms down along the sides, cupping the hands around the heels. Forehead rests on the earth, or any other version of a child's pose here. And come back to the breath. All right, on the inhale, we're going to come back up. Let's find ourselves in a seat with the legs extended long in front of us. So we're going to experiment with 2 different poses here. And I kind of want to come back to that idea of how you need to honor your energy today. So whether it's about finding generosity for others, or maybe you need to bring some of that compassion back into yourself. So think about that idea and what you need. And then I'm going to take you through two different poses. We'll do both of them together. And then you're going to choose which of the two poses the body needs based on this idea and this energy of either giving more or receiving more. All right, so the first shape we're going to take is a fish pose. We're going to take the hands and take them behind the hips. Fingertips are pointing in, and then start to press into the palms. And again, find a little lift and a reach of the heart forward. So we're coming out of the shoulders. We're not sinking into the shoulders here. We're staying lifted. Heart is reaching forward. A little bit of flexion in the upper part of the back. And then on the exhale, start to slowly lower down, coming down onto the forearms. Still finding that lift out of the shoulders. The chin is tucked into the chest. Maybe reaching that heart a little bit further up. So opening up the heart. Now, if you feel good here, stay here. If you'd like, maybe experiment with very gently allowing the head to tilt back, just allowing the gaze to very slowly guide the head all the way down. Still stay lifted out of the shoulders. And you can also take one of your blocks and place that underneath the head. You can come back out, taking the block on the highest setting, and then coming back and exploring into that shape. Adjusting the block. And then letting the head rest on the block. Provide some relief off of the neck. If it's uncomfortable, to let the head hang. But still keep the heart reaching. That's where that's where we're focusing here, is opening up the chest, and through the shoulders. And so imagine here, like we're opening up our heart, we're giving. So this would be the expression of giving to the world. So if you find yourself needing to give more, maybe this shape, this pose feels good to you here. Should honor that. All right. So in the next inhale, we're going to use the hands, the arms to press and lift ourselves back up. And then to counter this shape, we'll inhale, reach the hands to the sky, and then exhale, round the spine, let the belly come in toward the legs, and the arms come down and rest anywhere that's comfortable. They can rest on the earth. Maybe they rest somewhere on the legs, the calves, the ankles. Maybe your arms are long enough and you can reach the feet or the toes. See if you can really round the spine. So think like cat pose here with that rounded upper part of the back, really spreading the shoulder blades apart. Chin comes in toward the chest. Imagine taking the gaze out and beyond your belly button. And then here is that counter idea of honoring the energy, maybe coming back within. What do you need to nurture you? Maybe to close off the energy of the heart and to protect yourself here. So coming into this forward fold. Maybe just noticing, how does this feel? Is it uncomfortable? Where do you feel this shape in the body? And on the next inhale, we'll start to walk the hands in, bring the torso upright. And then this is your opportunity to honor where your body is in your practice today. What do you need? And so between those two shapes, so maybe with this idea of you needing to call in more for you, more compassion, more generosity for yourself, then you'll take the forward fold, closing your energy off, closing the heart off, and protecting you and your energy. But if you find yourself needing to give more, being more generous, offering more compassion to the world, then maybe you take this supported fish pose. So between these two shapes, and I'll guide you back between the two. If you're taking the supported fish, you're going to take the hands, rest them behind the hips, fingertips pointed in, start to press into the palms, find a lift of the chest forward, and then on the exhale, lowering down onto the forearms. Still lift through the heart, reach the heart forward. So again, finding a way to express the generosity of your heart here. Chin can stay tucked in toward the chest, or if it feels okay on the neck, you can allow the gaze to come behind you, maybe resting ahead, your head on the block. And we'll stay here for a few cycles of breath. If you're taking the seated forward fold, Pashistasana, you'll reach the hands to the sky, exhale, round the spine, belly comes in toward the thighs, hands come down and rest anywhere that's comfortable. And then really round the spine, spread the shoulder blades apart, tuck the chin in toward the chest. Imagine taking the gaze out beyond the belly button, protecting your energy, drawing in, giving yourself compassion and love. A few more cycles of breath wherever you're at. And then start to come out. So from your forward fold, you'll walk the hands in, bring the torso upright. From your fish pose, if the head is tilted back, you're going to very slowly bring that chin back into the chest. Start to press into the forearms and then use the strength of the arms, the hands to come up. And then setting aside any props. And then we're going to come back down onto our backs. We're going to need the bolster here in a minute, so we'll just take that and set it to the side. And then when you get to your back, let's bend the knees and then find a tick-tock of the knees from side to side. And then on the inhale, we'll draw the knees into the chest, and then exhale, take the legs to the sky. And point and flex the toes, roll out the ankles. You can also provide a little extra support underneath the hips. You can place the hand underneath the hips here. That might feel nice. You can also use your block if you have your block nearby, or you can even rest the hips on the bolster. That might feel gentle and loving on the hips as you take the feet to the sky. Anything comfortable with the hands, they can come down by the side. They also feel nice to reach the arms up and overhead. And then find some stillness. And let's flex the feet, bringing the toes in toward the body. And then really draw those heels to the sky. So imagine you're going to be walking on the ceiling, keeping those feet flexed. And then at the hips, not at the waist, we're not lifting at the waist, we're here at the hip point where the thigh plugs in toward those hip joints. You're keeping the feet flexed, we're going to start to draw the legs a little bit closer to the body. So you can keep a slight bend in the knees. You don't necessarily need to hyperextend the legs here, but just firing up the back sides of the body, back sides of the legs. And that hinge is coming forward at the hip point here. Maybe even walking the hands behind the legs to provide a gentle assist, pulling them a little bit closer. And again, just remember, more isn't better, it's just more. And so this is where we come back to, what does the body need in this moment? On the inhale, we'll bring the legs back through center. You can bend the knees. If you're on a prop, we'll take the feet back down and then just lift the hips up and then take that prop out from underneath you. We will use the bolster for our Shavasana, so just keep that handy. And then we're going to take our twist before our final resting pose. So let's find a little tick-tock of the knees from side to side. And then this time, let's walk the feet out to the outside edges of the mat. And then arms out to the side like a T. And then on the exhale, let the legs fall over to the left. Now, same option here that we had when we first started class with our first twist. You can cross that left ankle over the right thigh, or you can just stay here in this shape. Again, honor what you need. Notice how this feels in the body. Come back to that breath. If you took a crossing of that ankle, you can go ahead and release it back down. And then on the inhale, knees come back up through center. Exhale, legs fall over to the other side. And then just pause here before deciding if you need to add on. How does this side feel? And do I need more? And then taking that option if that's what you need, crossing that right ankle over the left thigh. We'll inhale, bring the knees back up through center. And then any final little movement, shifts or wiggles that you need to take before your final resting pose. And then we're going to grab that bolster and then we're going to place it underneath the knees and allow the legs, the knees to rest on top of the bolster for our Shavasana. It might also feel nice to take a supported Baddha Konasana with the soles of the feet together, resting on top of the bolster. Knees can come to the outside edges of the mat. And if at any time this becomes uncomfortable, you can always extend the legs back out. You can even take the bolster out from under the knees if you don't like that, and come back to that supported heart opener that we had at the beginning of class too. So any of those are good options. I'll give you a moment to settle in. And then let's come back to that scan of the body. Starting from the soles of the feet, traveling all the way up to the crown of the head, looking for feedback from the body. Noticing how each body part feels, any tension, any aches. Where do you feel soft, open? And then come back to the breath. Tracing the inhale through the nose to the bottom of the belly. And watching that exhale breath as it comes back out. leaving through the nose. Now let go of any focused breath and allow yourself to enjoy these next few minutes in your Shavasana. Start to bring some awareness back to the body. Maybe bringing in gentle movement like wiggling fingers and toes, rolling out wrists and ankles. You are welcome to stay just as you are and take additional time in your Shavasana. If you would like to finish with me in a seat, please make your way to a seat in whatever way makes sense for you. Now when you get there, if it's right for you in your practice and you want to bring hands at heart center, you can join me for Anjali Mudra. I consider it a great honor and privilege to sit in this seat and share my practice with all of you. With infinite love and gratitude, the light in me sees and honors the light in each one of you. Namaste. Thank you for joining me today. And if you feel so inclined, I would love to honor you. If you watched this video and enjoyed this practice, please leave your name in the comments section, and I'll leave you a little kindness greeting. So thank you so much.